Speaker, Hannah Thorpe, everybody.
I'm so impressed with anyone that ever makes it back after lunch. Apart from years that I've been speaking, I don't think I've ever made an afternoon session here. So well done. We definitely appreciate you all being here. I'm going to get straight into it. So I believe that brand is a ranking factor. Now, I've recently moved agencies, so as you'll notice on your little badges and all of that, it's going to say I'm from white.net. We actually sold, and we have sold to an agency called Found. And on my first day at Found, I mentioned that I thought the brand was a ranking factor. And my boss, who has now decided to sit in the front row, went, "It's absolutely not, Hannah, be quiet." And he was like, "Don't go and say that at a conference until you're certain." And I was like, "Well, I'm pretty sure, though." And then he asked me to explain my thought process. So I thought I'd explain it all with you. So we know that the Google algorithm uses machine learning. This isn't rocket science here. We also understand that the algorithm helps Google to know synonyms, and it means Google knows what a related search is. And that machine learning has helped build that understanding. So it's not a human that sits there and goes, "This word is the same as this word." We all know this is a bit smarter than that. Is my mic like blah, blah, blahing to you? Just to me? Okay, fine. So what if brand is just a different type of keyword? And I wanted to highlight these brands in particular, because those brand names are actually interchangeable for any of the products. How often do you actually call a jacuzzi a hot tub or a jacuzzi? Like, they're synonyms. So what's a synonym brand, and how do you become one? If you think about it, the way your brand is searched for, spoken about, linked to, all of that is actually could be a ranking factor. And to me, it definitely is. So the best way to do SEO in that case, if we consider brand to be a ranking factor, is really going to be front of mind, be useful, be better than competitors, basically build a brand and deserve to rank. Which means we need a lot of budget. It means you need to think about big marketing campaigns. It means you need TV, you need print, you need everything. But that's not really practical because it's rare that we're lucky enough to work at a brand where you have an unlimited budget and you can spend on things that aren't measurable and all of that. So really, all I'm trying to say is that the way we're doing our jobs is changing, and SEO is going to become different because big budget's a bit of way off for us, so what's going to happen? And I just wanted us to kind of get a bit of a reality check on what Google's doing. SEO is very much in its infancy. Google as a search engine is actually only 19 years old. I now know that my mum is watching this on some form of live stream, so I feel bad for saying this. But when I was 19, I was like drinking Lambrini in a park. I wasn't speaking on a stage, doing SEO, having a job. So it wasn't until Amazon was 19 that it even started offering the Amazon streaming services. I heard a really great example actually from Emily Grossman earlier. She was talking about Amazon and said they did one thing really well first before they developed. They sold a fuck ton of books. That was great, and then they've gone from there. So think of Google in that way. Think about Apple. At 19, this was what a slick Mac looked like. It's hardly what we see today as their product. And this was their website. Things change a lot in 19 years, and they're going to keep changing. So we need to understand the way that Google is changing right now. And that means there's changes in the algorithm and how SEOs work and how results display and all of the formats you can do things in. It means our standard approach doesn't work, or it will stop working soon, and we all want to have careers, so we need to up our game. Standard SEO tools, so things like Moz and all of those other ones that probably are sponsoring, so we shouldn't say this, struggle to predict more than 15% of ranking positions correctly. That's insane. They can tell you who's going to be position 1 to 3 based on any of their kind of authority scores. Anything less than that, and it's performing a bit badly, they have no idea. They can just tell you it won't be first. And 34% of searches actually result in there being no click from the SERP. That is a lot of non-traffic driving searches. And high traffic is sometimes the result of being top of the page, which is great. Like sometimes there are clicks. But if there's a clear answer, So such as these terms, which I always regret using because I actually can't say any of those words properly apart from December in Spanish. So if you look at December in Spanish as the example, you'll see that there's quite a high search volume, but total traffic's really low in terms of estimated traffic on that term that goes to that top result. And why is that? It's because there's an answer box, because there's already a solution given to you. Now, Izzy's going to talk way more about that later, so we're not going to dive too deep into how to get the answer box, but what we do know is they're having a massive impact. If there's a clear answer to a question, then nobody actually wants to visit your site. So high rankings do not mean you're going to get high traffic. If you're exclusively measuring singular rankings, you might be having no impact on your business. So what we're going to talk about is how to kind of defeat this now without having to spend big budget. Thinking higher up the funnel, simplifying your content, using markup, deserving to rank, and actually learning to be user-centric as well. So we're going to start with thinking higher up the funnel. There is no such thing as a truly accurate search volume. Pretty much every tool, and AdWords included, everything is consolidated together, it groups keywords, but also, ultimately, we all know that the data we're given from Google isn't great. You look at something like this, and this is stolen from Verve Search, and they did this study, and they were like, hold on a minute, the search volume's the same for this, and I'm pretty sure not everyone makes the same typos and does this. What's going on? So understand that here, there's not searching the same amount. What's actually going on is that Google's lumped this together. Verve have a really cool tool that works this out for you and gives you kind of a consolidated, they call it a canonical keyword, and a canonical keyword volume. But ultimately, we can't just rely on search volumes alone. So instead, we need to think about the moment that customer is in instead. By looking at the moment, we need to understand what our customers are doing and what sort of information they need. Now, for me, I always use the example of like when I used to get the tube to work. The reason I loved fast AMP pages when I was on my way to work was I could load up the page whilst at a tube stop and was on the Wi-Fi before I got to the next stop, so I'd have something to read. So understand exactly the moment they're in and the type of content they want to consume at that time. And then keep it simple as well. So if you start by thinking about the format of your content, I firmly believe that we should go back to how we were taught at school to write, which is to make your point, expand on it, and then comment on it. To give you an example, because this is something that works really well in search, you make your point at the top on this page, they define what agile software development is, they answer the question. Then they give some examples, and then this nice bit at the end that's really long is the comment and the brand perspective. And the reason that works is because it then appears in SERPs. So it then helps it appear as a structured answer because you've given a direct answer to that question. You've performed to the Q&A process and given the customer what they want initially. The other thing is just keep it simple with tables. So define what's in the table, use titles. I've never seen a search result, but don't quote me on it, with more than 5 columns that appear in that answer box. So if you have to make tables with more than 5 columns, why don't you make 2 different ones rather than enormous ones that won't appear in search? Think about lists, numbers, and bullet points to tell Google it's a list you're writing. If you're writing a recipe, have a very simple numbered step-by-step and then have the detail at the bottom. That's your point, and then your examples are the actual, and comment is the nice bit about how you actually do it. All this is really just us producing the same content, but understanding how Google reads it and how users read it and matching that up a bit better. And then the next point is to use structured data. Structured data is just a standard way of putting information on a page and telling Google what you're doing. It's signposting. So if we go back to what we learned at school with point, example, and commenting on like paragraphs, this is also simple as that. We're signposting our paragraphs here. And that's going to help you with images and prices. It's going to help you appear in fancy little boxes like this. At Google's 20th anniversary thing, which happened last week, they announced loads and loads of new formats they're doing. There's so many new answer cards coming out, and it's going to become crucial that you've got the right markup in place to help you win those cards. Have clarity in articles and in the answers you give. So actually, the price of advertising, there isn't an exact number, but you'll see they've put numbers on it, because that's what's won them the result. And that helps when there's 0 search results. Because think about what Google did with the what time is it in searches. They took away the rest of the results. Now, that didn't actually have that much of an impact on those businesses that were already ranking. So you need to kind of go with it. We either need to help Google understand us, or we have to accept that we're not going to win certain types of results, and we're not going to be able to rank. When I first started in SEO, someone told me not to use schema and not to use any structured data on my site because it was Google's way of scraping and stealing my content. That's all well and good, and it might be, but also, if you don't do it, you're just not going to rank for these terms anymore. So it's something we need to kind of really adapt, and that a lot of businesses aren't doing. And then the next thing is just deserving to rank. You're not going to rank if you're just talking nonsense. So if you do the same product for the same price, and you have all the same delivery options and all the same everything, why would a consumer choose you? Google needs to have some evidence that you're actually the preferred brand, and that might be demographic information where they know that typically someone would shop with you of that certain age, location, etc. But it could also be getting people to think about your brand, to talk about your brand, searching for your brand, and clicking on your brand. Giving them that content from higher up the funnel is going to help you to do this, which really means just focusing on users, but for real, not just saying you're focused on users. And Google does a really good job of this. So their mission statement is quite long, but you can simplify it by just saying, Google is focusing on you, whatever your need is, giving you back what you need. But who's the you they're on about? Because it's actually not us in the room, not us as SEOs or website owners, it's the consumer. So we need to adopt that approach too, and understand that Google's changes are all consumer-focused, so as brands, we need to be consumer-focused. Measuring that is hard, though. It's very easy to say that you're user-centric, and it's harder to actually be. I'm going to talk about a couple of the ways that I personally measure to see if I've got a good brand and a strong brand online. You can do big recognition surveys, but they can be expensive. So we're going to look at some easy stuff that you can do fairly instantly. So the first one we're going to look at is brand and product search. Now, one really simple way to do this is through Search Console. And just have a look and see how many you're driving where someone is searching for your brand name with your product. The more of those you can drive, the more you're triggering that synonym search, and you're showing people you're a synonym brand. Your average position versus click-through rate is probably one of the most valuable metrics you can get. So if your average position is completely static, and you're, say, average 26 for the same set of keywords over a period of time, but your click-through rate is going up, something's either changed in that SERP, or potentially people know you more, and they're choosing you, even though you rank lower, because they recognize your brand. Now, that's a really important metric, and actually, not many of us are targeting the difference between the two. And tracking structured data. So I think that looking at what your competitors are doing on this is really, really important. You can do this manually, obviously, by just checking. But what you could also do is speak to Little Warden, who are going to integrate this into their tool as something that we've said we'd really like. And just understanding the types that they've used and the terminology they've used. And then do they have answer boxes? Where do they sit? All of this information, luckily, is readily available, so we need to make use of it. So I just wanted to kind of sum this all up for you. So what we do know is that keywords do not equal rankings. Rankings do not equal traffic, and traffic does not equal conversion. But why? Well, we've got conversational search, we've got algorithm changes, we've got time in SERP, we've got knowledge graph, voice search, all of these things that are changing the way that consumers are shopping, so we need to change the way that we're working. And that means that we really need to think higher up the funnel, simplify our content, use proper markup, deserve to rank, be user-centric, and then keep going. You can't just be user-centric and stop, okay? Because people are changing, you have to keep going. And that is everything I have to say, apart from one shameless self-promotional bit, which is we're hiring. So if you are looking for a new job and you are based in London, we have a ton of SEO vacancies. You can come and join our team who are all sat here. Wave your hands. They're all sat there, so you can go and talk to them about how fun it would be to work with them. And that's everything. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hannah. I really enjoyed that, and certainly picks out